Firstly, I'm so delighted to be here, and more than all, I see this as the best investment of my time to be here in this forum. And Dr. Shainu, thank you very much for the invitation, and more importantly, I'm pretty humbled by your description of me, and I'm not even as half as what you spoke about. So I think it's and again, Professor Dhananjay and the esteemed guests around here. It's really a great time to be here. I think the first thing that struck me when I'd read about REVA, but I'd not physically seen REVA. I'd heard about REVA, but I'd not experienced REVA. And as I drove into the campus and I looked at it, I think this was a massive, massive place. And any education institution has three critical components, right? One is, of course, the infrastructure. Second is the teaching faculty and the thing. But what makes the biggest impact for a institution is the cohort group, right? Because they bring a lot into the institution to build the institution as well. And institutions get built a lot because of the student community and the cohort that comes in. And as I was reading through the cohort group, and I spent some time prior to this trying to understand the cohort group, what's the profile and all of that, I think just looking at the profile of each of y'all and the effort that you have taken to actually invest in yourselves into this program reflects a lot, not just of the institution, but also about what the institution bring to you all, but what you all bring to yourselves as well. I sincerely believe that, and in a way, I'm very envious of you all, that you're able to take the effort and create the space within yourselves to actually reinvest for whatever objectives you want to achieve. I think Dr. Shinu did talk about growth and all of that stuff, but I think growth will naturally come in. It's an outcome, but the process that you'll go through in this is very important. And the fact that so many of you all are from great companies, so many of you are doing wonderful jobs, and on top of that, you're taking this time to build new capabilities for yourselves, build new skills for yourself, talks about the core element of learning, which is curiosity. And that is very important as you build yourselves into the next level as we go along. I'm going to talk a little bit about as you're setting forward into this journey and taking the first step today. I want to talk to you about the shape of tomorrow, the tomorrow that the way I see it, the way the world sees it across. A lot of it is not new, but it's a point to just reflect upon the things that are coming by and why the courses that you're picking up, which is whether it's cloud, AI, cybersecurity, data, is so very relevant to all of it. One of the profile, when I looked at the cohort profile, a lot of you are from the tech industry yourselves, right? And tech industry, which all of us represent, is in a way, I would call it as an enabling industry. It's not the primary industry. It's an enabling industry. It's enabling other user industries, right? It's enabling the automotive industry, enabling the steel industry, the banking industry or whatever, right? So as enablers, this industry has a very critical role to play, but it's a lot dependent on how the feeder industries or the user industries are making the shift. So the first thing which we're going to talk about is the shape of tomorrow, unlike the past, is not defined by what happened recently or is not a continuation of the past, but it's actually a disruptive future that we're all outlooking. And disruptive future is a very positive sign for all of us, the way we look at it, right? So if you look at the 4 or 5 stages of the various revolution that happened, right, whether the industrial revolution, which was one form of a disruption that happened in the night. So when you look at the various technological revolutions, just take a 250-year snapshot, right? Industrial revolution in the 1770s, 1797, there was a frenzied panic and a disruption happened and it went forward. The steam engine was a disruptive point, again, took back up. Then came heavy engineering, then came the automotive engine. The internal combustion engine became the biggest disruptor and then went across. Then came the age of information technology. We went through a dip in the dot-com era. Then again, there was a regeneration. Now, I believe that in the last 18 months, the next 18 months, we are headed for a disruptive growth once again. And as I go through this, you'll see why the disruptive growth is going to come in and why the time that you'll have taken and the investment that you're making is never a better time and never a better place this is the right time and the right place for what you're doing at this point in time in your life and career. So if you just take a snapshot of the paradigm shifts that happened from left to right across, right? The changes have been from pretty fundamental. Mass production was the focal at one point in time, right? Large scale manufacturing, mass production. Now we're going to flexible manufacturing, which is a unit of one. Earlier, services were converted into products. Now products are going back into services. So everything is as a service kind of a consumption is what you're looking at. You look at human resources to human talent, right? So it's moving from a resource to a talent, and that's where the concept of learning and things come across very clearly. Again, environmental concern was not a big area in the industrial area, but now when you look at it, environmental concern, sustainability, and the whole area around that has become a forefront of how we look at it as we pull together. From being economies of scale, you're moving into serving individuals, customizing services, customizing products to an individual, to consumption of one. So that's the big shift, as you can see from what you saw in the earlier stage to here. And every part of this has a disruption cycle that comes in. So disruptive business models are in play in every field that you look at it, right? From being a dominant incumbent business, every business is getting disrupted, and there's always you would call it as an attacker, you would call it as a new entrant, or you call it as a bold mover who's basically making that shift and challenging. So every company, every industry is going through will get challenged. And when you look at this curve, in the beginning, you see that the incumbents are pretty dominant, right? Take an example of maybe, and you can, and you all have a lot more examples as well. If you take an example of the call taxi service, when the airport started out here, whole call taxi service was such a dominant one, Miru and Mega and all of those, very dominant, right? And it really peaked at a point in time. But then you started slowly seeing the disruption coming in through the Olas and the Ubers across, which sort of disrupted that business model. And I was talking to one of the original people who started off the whole Mega thing. And he said, look, the disruption that came in, we knew it was coming in. We were trying to time it, but it just got to a point where we just couldn't challenge it at a point in time. We probably should have transformed a little bit earlier instead of waiting for us to be challenged. And that's why every organization, while it's maintaining its current business profile, has to constantly within itself keep looking out for disrupting its own business before somebody else comes and disrupts across. You'll see that examples everywhere. Airbnb, example of how the hotel industry gets impacted. Your food delivery models, all of those. And look at education itself, right? Education itself, from being one form of physical tech into a ed tech into a remote tech. And what y'all are doing out here is a form of disruption to yourselves in terms of getting onto the next curve. And I believe that all of y'all are this side of it to get onto the bold move that you're taking in your jobs and careers. So some traditional businesses that went through disruption and have stayed on, Netflix, perfect example, from being a online DVD rental store to now becoming a as a service consumption, where people are not looking at owning products. People don't want, I mean, of course, people here do want to own products, but it's more of consumption as a service. And making that shift from owning a product to as a service model is what you see players like Netflix, players like Spotify, right? From providing basic services, but then charging a premium for others across. Closer home, Pringo, which is a Mahindra company, the tractor rental service, right? Again, ownership versus usage. So the shift of ownership versus usage and the underlying as a service consumption becomes a very key, and a lot of it focused on experience. And when you're talking about experience, then you've got to have data. You've got to be able to analyze the data and look at customizing it for a user of one, and hence it becomes a lot more apparent. Now, I'm going to take a pause and step aside and talk about the way I see a few future disruptions that are triggered by various factors. I'm going to pick up about 4 or 5 industries. The first industry is the energy industry. Second, healthcare. Third is food. Fourth is the technology industry itself, which we're all seeing across. All of it being driven by sustainability as a big disruption driver, bioengineering, and space. And I'll talk a little bit of each of these in a sort of context. Now, the reason why I'm talking about all of this is that the work that we do, or the learning that you're putting yourself, is going to be going to enable or going to disrupt of what our user industries are going to be. And these are few industries. I'm not taking the automotive industry. All of those we know, right? Connected cars, technology and all that. But some of these industries are what I believe in the curve that you saw are in the early nascent part of the shift, and it will start picking up and get together. So let's take the energy industry, for example. If you look at the energy industry, traditionally it has got three building blocks. One is the producer of the energy, whether it is a coal-based producer, hydroelectric-based producer, thermal-based producer. Then you have a distribution organization, which takes the energy from there, takes to the distribution, and then distributes to the consumer, which is all of us, we consume. Three basic building blocks. So the value chain was who generated power at the right value, who distributed efficiently, and hence the consumer paid the price for it. Now, the fundamental disruption that's happened out here is the consumer has turned the producer today, right? Using solar, using initiatives that have started coming out. Wind. In your own land, in your own farm, you could have a windmill generating power. You're feeding back power. You could have solar on your rooftop. So you now become a generator. So the whole value capture from generating in one place and distributing to the other is now shifted to generating by the consumer and sometimes feeding it back to the grid as well. And because of this shift, you'll see a whole lot of companies that we've probably not heard of, whether it is PowerEck, who's into analytics of turning around power from one frame to another frame, or whether it is you need to take this company called the Turkish player, right? Turkish player called Blockchain. The company is called BlockZ, which basically enables anybody in an energy market to be able to economically distribute and transplant power. Now, for all of this to happen across this disruption, there's a lot of tech underneath it. There's a lot of technology which is driving underneath it, a lot of data, a lot of analytics work which drives this shift. And this, as you can see, is at the point of accelerating the growth and will become a big disruption as you go forward in the industry. Now, closer home, right? It's not too far. A couple of days ago in Deccan Herald, there was this article, not an article, it was an advertisement by the government of Karnataka saying that, look, they're putting an incentive out for people to put up solar power plants on their house. And actually, if you look at it, they're actually saying that you can sell the electricity back to the grid. Right? You can sell electricity back to the grid. So in a way, consumers are turning producers. The value capture from traditional producers is now shifted to different sort of consumers. And you can see that shift coming up. And a lot of it will also come in because of the incentivization by the government industry to catch the sustainability metric, right? For long, for long, we are in a space where we're not leaving the planet in the place where we found it or how we found it. We disrupted it so badly that now we have to take a lot more effort to get back to that stage. The next thing is healthcare. Again, here, the shift you got to look at it is from, in the healthcare industry, three fundamental components, right? The doctors and the medical professional, the infrastructure provider, which is the hospitals or the medical labs or anything else, and then the consumer. Value capture was from the left to right. But now, with technology, consumers themselves have become returning value capture. With the technology available, with all sorts of devices that you wear across, information is being fed back, data is being fed back into, let's call it as a grid box where people are able to now analyze, and the healthcare industry is benefiting from it. Who were traditionally providing the value are now getting the value back from the consumer, and hence you see that shift coming across. So immersive technology will start playing a very big role. In fact, during COVID, one of the biggest core medical issues was around liquid in the lungs, right? Liquid levels in the lung and trying to contain it and manage it. And how do you do that was a big issue for medical doctors. And hence you always had to go into an ICU or constantly monitor. Well, there's an Israeli firm that has just founded a technology which creates like a vest jacket that one wears it across and that monitors your levels. You don't have to go to a hospital to take the service. It can be delivered at your home on yourself. As long as you're wearing the jacket, it senses all the various fluid levels in your body and transmits that back over the cloud in real time for the benefit to go back. And hence, data is getting generated. The patient is getting treated in a different manner. And it's sort of now questions that the traditional healthcare system of a hospital and a doctor and the value chain going across is now getting disrupted. And you'll see that a lot more as you go across. Third is the food industry. what we've seen is one form of disruption, right? Which is basically concept of producer, creator, and consumer, right? Creator is the restaurant, and the producer is wherever the food is getting produced, and then the consumer was. That value chain is also getting disrupted to a certain extent. The first set of disruption we already saw it through the change that happened because of the food delivery organizations like the Zomatos and the things of the world. But the next wave of change is going to come in is on sustainability. So a lot of people are now really looking at, hey, where does this food come from? Where's the origination of this what I'm consuming? And is this in a manner that aligns to my purpose and principles, right? So today, the animal husbandry industry, not in India, but in most parts of the world, is the biggest cause of causing a very big impact to the green earth, right? A lot of a lot of forest land is getting converted into places for animal husbandry and for large scale livestock farming, and that's causing a very significant impact to the earth, and hence a lot of people are either turning away from meat-based products to plant-based products, or are really looking at how do I get the same amount of consumption of protein without actually impacting that. So you see a lot of work going around on basically meat is all about protein. So how do you get protein without impacting the earth and sustainability? So a lot of work is going around in this area. Again, a lot of tech work. There's this company called Fermoten, which basically is in a Dutch company, which is basically generating plant-based protein, which has the same impact or better impact than animal-based protein, and using that to basically ship. And all of this underlying this is primarily technology, which you are all investing your time and effort into at this point in time. The technology industry itself, a little bit of things across. You've seen how the tech industry has changed in the last thing. I mean, I started my career 30 years ago, and 30 years ago to now, there were three fundamental laws that basically accelerate the pace of tech industry. The Moore's law, which all of you will be familiar of, which is the processing power of CPUs and technology, was one thing. It basically said every 2 years the power will double. But right now we are at a very different stage. Henry's law, which is a science law, and then the Butler's law, which is about amount of data that you can pump through an optical fiber, right, which is network. So these three have stayed their ground, but it's just that the shifts have happened so fast that you're able to generate more computing power, quantum computing, you're able to generate more data throughput through the network, and you're able to get more pixels in a per square inch, so kind of a thing, right? So with this as a base on the disruption of technology, I would say the first wave of the technology industry disruption was done by more technical power coming in, more computing power, more network power, more storage, more good graphics. All of that disrupted one stage. But now the next stage is going to come in through the application of that technology to business problems, whether it is analyzing the problems, whether it is protecting the environment, but more importantly, how do you play that game in a different manner? So sustainability. This is real. This is now and immediate. The amount of focus that is coming in onto sustainability right now in every industry, every corporation, every element of what we do is really very big. And this was not a very big area in the industrial world. It was not a very big area in a generation which was maybe 2-3 years prior to us. But today, organizations and corporations will be making a lot of decisions on what they do, how they do, what they consume, how they consume based on sustainability. So you'll see a lot of organizations coming up to support and build logic and technology around sustainability and what they do across. You'll see a lot of companies already in this play. You'll see a lot more coming in this play, and all of that becomes a very key area to go through. Lastly is about bioengineering. Again, disruption here, the whole concept of treating healthcare, replacement is now becoming by regeneration, recreation. So you've seen a whole lot of technology of 3D printing and all of that now being applied to organ printing, right? The whole concept of if you had to go for a knee replacement, it was a medical device that was doing it. There were companies which build their business models around implants and devices, and then you take that and then operate and put across. But now, using this technology, it's about customizedly creating products using 3D organ development and so on and pulling it across. A lot of work going around in this area. Again, going to be very disruptive as you go forward. So, space. Space has always been, has not just disrupted businesses by itself, but it's disrupted a whole lot of downchain product line and product technologies underneath it, right? When whatever happened in space development in terms of material science, in terms of rocket technologies, has always had downstream impact on other industries and other capabilities. You'll find that a lot more going now because as the whole space volume of space travel starts going up, the newer and newer products start coming. The first thing innovation was the fact that every launch meant that one rocket would go up and never come back and get lost, or was every launch one rocket powered every launch. But now technology is there such that what Elon Musk has done is basically send a rocket up but bring the rocket back for a next reuse. And hence technology, material science, all of that stuff is what you see. So in summary, applies to companies, applies to individuals, applies to every one of us. Make bold moves or we'll become irrelevant. Corporations have to make those bold moves constantly. There's always a challenger. There's always a ninja out there, which one is visible, but one might not be visible. So one, make the bold moves to always stay ahead. Make also the bold move to disrupt yourself. Make always the bold move to be able to connect and look around as to what can potentially come in and where the disruption can come in. Some of the companies that have really gone out of the world today, either they saw it, did not do it, or did not see it and got impacted. And those that saw did not take the right timely steps, got impacted. Similar thing applies to each one of us as professionals, as individuals, and more importantly, as a human race that is looking at going to the next level of what we want to do. Each of you have taken the bold move. The bold move is, it's not easy. It's not easy to work 5 days a week and then get up on a Saturday morning and then say, I'm going back to study. It's not easy. It's not easy. And more importantly than everything else, there's a lot of personal commitment that you all put together. There's commitment that you all put together. There's commitment that your families put together. There's commitment that your organizations put together. But at the core of it is that first commitment that you all have put on the table. That's a bold move. So the move that you all have taken today is, I would say, that will get you all here, irrespective of what you'll do. And the second thing that I would like to leave behind is the cohort group. The institution is a place that facilitates learning. Institution will facilitate learning. It will create the right environment, it will create the right inputs, the right thing. But a lot of it will come in by your contribution to your cohort group. And that is the best form of applying real lives coming into discussions. And more important than everything else, it enables the sharing of knowledge from a practical experience of what you've seen, aided by a facilitator who's bringing in certain amount of experience and knowledge. But more importantly, what you take back and co-create out of this 2-year program is going to be something so immensely valuable that you might not see it on a week-to-week basis. But when you finally cross your course across and when you see where you reached at a point in time, you'll see that, look, this has been the greatest investment of your time, your effort, your money, of course. And more importantly, I think the outcome that's going to come in is going to be real wonderful. So the payoff will go for those who move boldly, and you all have taken the bold step to move boldly, and the institution has created the right kind of program, right kind of structure, and has brought in the right enablers in terms of your faculty, your staff, your infrastructure, your use cases, your labs, all of those. So make the most out of it. As I said, I envy you all. I really envy you all that you all have been so bold enough to take this step and come here. At some point in time in my life, I will come back into a school to again, because I'm going to get disrupted at some point in time. And I have to be able to figure it out and take the time to step back and reinvent myself. So with that, I really want to thank the REVA and RACE for getting me here. To me, it's the best investment of my time to be here. And what I'm taking back here is a motivation to go back and really take that bold step to carve time out and come back to school and sit like you all and listen. So thank you very much. And once again, great time to be here.